Hold on. Test, test.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. I would like to call the special call meeting of the Milton City Council for Monday, February 26, 2024 to order. The city strongly recommends that you review tonight's agenda carefully. And if you wish to speak on any item on the agenda, then please bring your comment cards to the clerk as soon as possible. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll be happy to call roll for the February 26, 2024 special called City Council meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. Those attending the meeting who would like to make a public comment, you are required to complete a public comment card prior to the agenda item being called. When speakers are asked to come to the podium, you'll identify yourself by name, address, and/or organization before beginning your comment. If you are representing an organization, a notarized affidavit is required stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. Please review tonight's agenda, and if you would like to make a comment, please bring your comment cards to me now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation will be asked to leave. As I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea Veerhoff.
Here.
Councilmember Doug Haney.
Here.
Councilmember Carol Cookerly.
Here.
Councilmember Phil Claremore.
Here.
For the record, Councilmember Juliet Johnson and Councilmember Jan Jacobus are absent. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is approval of the meeting agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the meeting agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the meeting agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Verhoff and a second from Councilmember Haney to approve the meeting agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Next is public comment. Do we have any public comment?
We do, Mayor.
Okay, the next item is general public comment. Public comment is a time for citizens to share information with the mayor and the city council and to provide input and opinions on any matter that is not scheduled for its own public hearing during today's meeting. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. Please remember this is not a time to engage the mayor or members of the city council in conversation. When your name is called, please come forward and speak into the microphone stating your name and address for the record. You will have 5 minutes for remarks. The city encourages you to review the agenda, and if you wish to speak, to bring your comment cards to the city clerk right now. If the city clerk will please call the first public comment.
Mayor, I invite Laura Bentley to the podium.
I'm Laura Bentley, 2500 Bethany Church Road. My comments tonight relate to the request for the issuance of the alcohol license to DeRose Ventures. What took place in 2021 is important to the council members who were not on council, but more importantly, for the council members who were and participated in the work to remedy a huge loophole which surfaced when we gave an alcohol permit license to the Painted Horse Winery. Your institutional knowledge is critical in the denial of this alcohol license. It is important that each of you review these important meetings. They hold the key reasons for you to deny with confidence the DeRose Ventures alcohol request. Please recall in May of 2019, we granted an alcohol license to the Painted Horse Winery for a 2,500 square foot tasting room. The applicant stated wine tastings would only be 10 people showing up to taste wine, and events were never intended for the winery. Throughout the spring of 2021, the Painted Horse Winery hosted the Uncorked concert series, which included alcohol, concerts, and crowds. We had many complaints, and we had no control. The alcohol license had been issued with no protections for the adjacent property owners. The 2021 council set out to fix our mistake. May 24th, 2021, We imposed an immediate moratorium on the acceptance of alcohol licenses, LDPs, and building permits for tasting rooms planned for farm wineries. It was a prohibition to not allow permits that could be considered vesting rights. This also provided council time to implement additional regulatory controls. June 28th, 2021, a public hearing took place to instate the moratorium. This moratorium had numerous extensions while the 2021 council worked to amend Chapter 4, alcohol, and create the conditional use permit for Chapter 64, land use. These important meetings were Chapter 4 amendments, 10/18/21. You have to remember that one. It went past midnight. Chapter 64, conditional use permit, 12/20/21. Removed the farm winery from the as of right chart and created the conditional use permit, which must be first applied for before any alcohol licenses are approved. Often throughout these discussions, it is stated there is only one vested farm winery, and that is the Painted Horse. There were and are no others. Our city attorney at the time, Ken Gerard, states during our final meeting to address this problem, December 20th, 2021, and I quote, "You've upended the entire narrative by making it a non-as-of-right use. That changes everything. So the only farm winery that ever exists in the future when this council is done won't be allowed." Councilmember Cookerly affirms it will go through a process. Mr. Gerard affirms it will go through a process. That process is the conditional use permit, which protects the neighboring properties through notification, participation, and a regulatory standard contained in the conditional use permit. The 2021 council worked hard on that process, 7 months worth. It's the conditional use permit and then the alcohol license. This has not occurred here, and this council has every right to deny the alcohol license and require that these laws be filed for this AG1 property that wants to become a commercial farm winery. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I invite Steve Lanham to the podium.
Good evening. My name is Steve Lanham, 220 Weatherwood Circle, Milton, Georgia. To begin, I stand in complete opposition to the liquor license application as presented by Mr. Rosenberger. I urge you to vote no. Last week, many of us called for an independent third-party audit of this entire process. Not just the liquor license application, but the entire project from square one to square last. The city of Milton rejected that idea. But apparently, the city went about their own review of the process leading up to this point. Please correct me if I'm wrong. But if the city did do that, did the city uncover any mistakes, misrepresentations, omissions, improper communication with the applicant, improper coaching with the applicant, failure to follow official processes, ordinances, failure to review building and land use permits, or policies by the city relative to this matter? We have. Our small group of vested homeowners has uncovered many items which the city has either ignored or has chosen not to share. And we're still digging. We'll be more than happy to share our findings with local mass media and the appropriate county, state, and possible federal agencies. In meetings with Mayor Jameson, Councilmember Cranmer, and Councilmember Henney, they have all told us the same thing. Well, it's awful, but it's lawful. I'm sorry, that's a cop-out. You can't hide behind that. We have a huge problem on our hands at your handling. It needs to be fixed, and it needs to be fixed immediately. In my opinion, what the applicant refers to as his winery and as his working farm is neither. That's my opinion. I see this as an arrogant and self-indulgent fantasy that's been foisted upon the genuinely concerned, vested neighbors in this neighborhood. This is one person driving a disruption to not only their 6 homeowners in the back and our 30+ in the front. It's unacceptable, and it flies in the face of the reasonable man principle, which governs much of our law. This is unreasonable. It is ridiculous. And again, I ask you to vote no. Recently, the applicant has taken to local social media asking for the community's help in opening what he calls his awesome concept. He and Mrs. Rosenberger have actually been noted as top contributors to the Milton, Georgia Peeps Facebook page. They chose to play this out in public. I chose to respond to them in public. I've asked them directly, how old are your grapevines? Common knowledge is that grapevines need to be at least 7 years old before they produce a harvestable and usable fruit. I've asked that question, no response. I've asked him when the grapes will be ready for harvest. That's important because the applicant purports to make wine on our farm. Well, when is that going to happen? 4 years from now, 1 year from now, 6 years from now? When is that going to happen? Does the applicant have winemaking equipment on site? I don't think so. Will they have wine made by someone else? I'd like to know where, and simply put their own label on that product. That changes the dynamic of this whole thing. Now this is a commercial enterprise in our neighborhood. In my opinion, what has happened here is not what the state of Georgia envisioned with the Farm Winery Initiative. I think the governor and others, the Department of Agriculture, were all very sincere in catching the wave of farm wineries. It's the wrong place. This is not a real winemaking operation. And I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I invite Deborah Lanham to the podium.
My name is Deborah Lanham. I live at 220 Weatherwood Circle, Milton, Georgia, and I'm married to Steve. I'm going to bring a perspective that's about quality of life. Steve and I moved our family here 27 years ago from Detroit. We have 3 grown sons, and we have been here 27 years in Milton when it was unincorporated Fulton County. We had Fulton County services. We didn't have a city, but we watched the explosion in Alpharetta, and then suddenly a Johns Creek, a Sandy Springs, and a Milton forming their own cities. An amazing thing to watch. The growth has been incredible. And when we were moving here, we had a realtor that encouraged us. We didn't know much about this northern part of Atlanta. And our realtor encouraged us to look on the east side of 400. That's where the growth really was, the best schools, shopping. North Point Mall was right there just on the east side of 400. We were really encouraged. But when we discovered this part of the unincorporated Fulton County, or what is now Milton, it was spectacular. We fell in love with it. And this is where we've made home for 27 years. Our boys went through all the schools, Crabapple Crossing, Northwestern, and Milton High School, the old Milton and the new Milton. We have, as a family, been very honest in how we've lived our lives in Milton. So you have to call an arborist to have your trees taken down. Make sure you're taking down the right trees. You have to have a permit to build a deck on the back of your home. We have been lawful. We have been great citizens. We have given. We have been generous. We have supported small business. And of course, I've been a part of the Chamber of Commerce world for over a decade. So very much supporting those businesses and tipping well when we go to our Milton restaurants. It's important. I am encouraging you to vote no. This is a disruption to our neighborhood, what we've invested in, and the fact that you would literally approve a commercial business, a liquor license in the back of our neighborhood after we have been law-abiding and done everything right, invested for 27 years in this community. is unbelievable. It's disappointing. And just watching my fellow neighbors and the love we have for one another, and so many of us have been there for so long, welcoming in the new neighbors, this is hurtful. And I really hope you'll seriously understand what you're doing to those lives, our families in Providence Plantation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sarah Moen.
My name is Sarah Moen. My address is 130 Providence Plantation Drive. This entire process regarding the liquor license at 13555 Black Marl Lane has been handled poorly. That's actually putting things nicely. And that's not just my opinion, the city has confirmed that. Instead of righting the ship, the city has continued to stay on a bad course. Telling us you messed up is meaningless if you do nothing to correct the mistake. Your handling of this mess has actually created a bigger mess. Your solution has been to negotiate behind closed doors and out of the public forum to get us to agree to concessions that don't protect us, but cover up your mess. We have been told that the city will never vote for the liquor license. We have been promised votes. We have had information that was discussed in executive session shared with us. We have been part of private negotiations, one of which the city manager actually joined at the end. We were told to rip up lists of concessions so they didn't make it onto the internet. I have personally been the target of more specific coercion. I've been called repeatedly on weekends and evenings to speak on behalf of the entire neighborhood and say how they feel about this issue. I've been called, asked to agree to concessions on behalf of the entire neighborhood so the agenda item could stay on the hearing calendar, and then verbally accosted when I pointed out that doing so was illegal. I have been subject to neighbor triangulation because I was not sharing with neighbors the incomplete information the city wanted me to share and in the time frame they wanted me to share it. I have been told to gather support from the neighbors, then told the neighborhood has no say, then told that the neighborhood should be grateful. After 2 private meetings to discuss concessions, I decided that it was time to invite the press into our third. I was told the city, specifically the mayor, attorney, and city manager, were furious and said we had gone nuclear for inviting the press in and making what should be a public meeting, in fact, a public meeting. I could go on, but I think you get the point. All of you, every staff member, every council member, all of you are sworn to a code of ethics. This mess has been anything but ethical. You have a moral, legal, and ethical responsibility to do the right thing. Follow the code, pull the liquor license application, and make the applicant adhere to the current zoning and alcohol codes by applying for a special use permit before a liquor license. It's time to clean up the mess.
Thank you.
Miss Jessica Buxton.
Hey, y'all. Back again. Jessica Buxton, 75 Providence Plantation Drive. I'm going to try and keep myself focused today. Just wanted to kind of talk about the fact that, through all this discovery and these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of emails and all of that we received on Friday, there's been 5 of us trying to go through all of this, and we still haven't gotten through it. So for Ken or whoever helped Ken to say that they got through this in 2 days, I would like to know who they are and how many, because we still haven't been able to get through it. There's been a tremendous amount of information that we are finding and discovering, mainly involving Robin and her misconduct with this whole thing, down to the fact that she knew exactly what Jim Rosenberger wanted to do with this events facility. His attorney emailed you guys, Robin, in September 17th, 2021. She emailed saying that the applicant wanted to have an events facility, host weddings of under 100 people, private parties, private events, corporate events, and stuff like that. So she knew September 17th. Then whenever he went to apply, she knew too. She knew. I sat down with her for 45 minutes. She told me he didn't need a zoning change to build his single family home. And so we've told you guys, she knew, because the subject line on this from his attorney says farm winery alcohol license, 1355 Black Marl Lane. So she has evidence that she was withholding from us That sign should have said, the green sign that you guys put out there should have said farm winery designation, Cup to AG1 for farm winery designation. Because guess what we also found? You guys issued his building permit for his single-family home on May 4th. Do you know when you held your final meeting for his farm winery? May 10th. That sign should have never, ever said Cup to AG to build a single-family home. It said on there for one home and concurrent variance. 0 about a farm winery. Even though the zoning manager that you guys hired knew exactly what he wanted to do. So please tell me how we as citizens had a fair chance to understand what was going on behind the gates. When the gates are closed 90% of the time, and we are basically told untruths from the city. Nobody? Because, like I said before, had you guys done your job, had Robin done her job, Steve, Peyton, you were on council, Carol, you were on council. I know you weren't part of the planning, but number one, Carol, and I see Lisa, forget her last name, but Lisa on almost every one of those emails back and forth with Jim Rosenberger and his attorneys. This is just gross negligence on the city's part. And I told you guys back a couple weeks ago when we were here, had we known, you would have had the same exact things that are happening now with our neighborhood showing up. It would have happened in 2021. And then you guys wouldn't have been in this situation. We wouldn't have been in this situation. And everybody would be moving on along. Jim would be going bottling his wine somewhere else. But the fact that it wasn't told to us, now we're all screwed. So you guys need to find a way out of this. We adamantly deny a liquor license in there, and that's exactly what you guys need to do. You know, I love my city. I've told you, Peyton, that I love this city. It saddens me, it disgusts me to see what's going on behind closed doors now in my lovely city. I'm a realtor at Keller Williams. My office at Keller Williams North Atlanta, we are #1 globally out of Keller Williams. I work with buyers all the time on selling Milton. And if I have to have the direct question to me, what about your city? I'm going to say, I love my city. It's beautiful here. We have a wonderful community. But if they say, well, what about the city council? Like, how is the city ran? Guess what? My fiduciary responsibility is not to lie to them. And I'm going to have to tell them, we've been done wrong. It's been totally terrible. So please make me rewrite this story to my buyers. Make me rewrite it that, you know what? The city did a wonderful job correcting the problem that they caused by denying the alcohol license and inevitably reversing his zoning back to Cup. Thanks. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Craig Franklin, you're invited to the podium. I'm sorry, Gary Buxton.
My name is Gary Buxton, 75 Providence Plantation Drive. So I think you all assume why I'm here. So I want to highlight a timeline for a few emails that have come to attention from between Robin and Jim that really highlight the due process breakdown that happened. That is the whole reason we're here. So as mentioned, September 2020, Robin's given a briefing over Zoom by lawyers on what the venue is going to be. In January 2020, she finds out he's building a house. And from Robin, I looked at the plan. I didn't realize that you were building a new house on the lot with the barn, in quotes. I can only assume that those quotes mean because it's clearly not a barn for animals anymore, yet somehow barn for animals makes it up onto the agenda item. What's more, is it's clear that this variance is an add-on. They just decided to lump it into the zoning decision. So clearly that wasn't the purpose and shouldn't even have been on the sign. Like Jessica said, it was already even approved ahead of the May 10th meeting by giving him a building permit. So then on March 3rd, after what I assume was the design review board meeting, from Jim, hi Robin, thanks for your support last night. I did walk away a little confused. It was my understanding the meeting was to approve a rezoning application and accessory structure variance, and instead somehow we got diverted into the feasibility of a winery on the property. Let me say that again. It was my understanding the meeting was to approve a rezoning application and accessory structure variance, not talk about a winery. This is Jim. This is the actual applicant didn't expect to talk about a winery, because the meeting agenda didn't say anything about a winery. So if the applicant doesn't know, how on earth is anyone from the public supposed to know? He goes on to say, as you know, the winery's a pet project has not really progressed beyond some creative discussions. To actually start a licensed farm winery, not only would we need a business license from the city, but we'd also need to spend at least a year getting a federal, state, and city winery license, a process we have not even applied for at this time. We agree. Why is this being discussed? Additionally, having in the past horses, goats, chickens, and even a zebra on the property, we in practice have acted more like ag wine and property than cup. Yep. So then the response, hi, Jim. I was a bit surprised by their reaction as well. I will try to couch things in a more clear manner for the Planning Commission. I think they got into the weeds. God forbid we get into the weeds when we're discussing about a commercial liquor license in the back of a subdivision. We will come up with a plan. Good, let's strategize. As background, there's currently a lot of negative issues coming from the Payne House Farm Winery on Bethany Way. I couldn't only suppose that that's why you don't want to put that on the agenda item. Hi, Robin. Thanks for your support on this matter. We'll look forward to your lead regarding next steps. Got a good team here. So then one of the interesting things is there's a email that Jim sends to one of the neighbors who is inquiring about what's going on. Michael, just as the city of Milton had warned me, nobody showed up either in person or via the Zoom invite. Apparently changing zoning from cup to ag one is not a concern for most. It's not, especially when you already got zebras running around your backyard. You don't really raise an eyebrow when you go for ag one. May 10th, shockingly, no one appears again to the secret winery discussions. May 11th, from Jim. Hi, Robin. Thanks so much for your help with the rezoning process. We could not have done it without you. Please let me know how many bottles of wine I can drop off for you and the Milton staff who helped endorse our efforts. Probably a couple bottles for the guy who was requesting free wine in the design review board meeting, or the planning commission meeting, excuse me. My point is, if only ag one was discussed in this, if the committee had held the discussion to just an ag one designation and not had a winery discussion, this whole gray area wouldn't exist. We wouldn't be standing here. The fact that the winery was discussed is created this gray area. If it was just given ag one, which is effectively he was only given ag one, then when those new rules come in place in December of 2021, that's what gets applied, as does anyone who is currently ag one up to that date. He's no different. The fact that you guys carried on, again, not you guys, the commission at the time, carried on with this discussion is what's created this mess. And it's prevented us our due process and having any say in the matter. Because you had this in secret where the applicant doesn't even know it's getting discussed, and then you have discussion of restrictions. And let me say that again, you discussed restrictions in the event that he builds a farm winery with his ag one designation. That's very different than a full approval and giving a liquor license. You're saying, and only saying because he tipped his hat to Robin, and by tipping his hat, it's saying, here's exactly what I intend to do. But only because he tipped his hat did you even discuss it. Otherwise, like Jim said, you would just be discussing zoning and a variance. So the fact that you guys, the city council did that is what's created this for everyone. He only had ag one, give him special use. There's absolutely no reason a liquor license should even have been discussed at the time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes public comment.
Okay, I'll close public comment, and we have nothing else on the agenda. I will have a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss potential litigation, land acquisition, and/or personnel.
Mr. Mayor, make a motion that we adjourn into executive session to discuss land acquisition, personnel, and potential litigation.
Second? Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cookerly and a second from Councilmember Cranmer. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you all for coming. Reconvene. And a second from Cookerly. All in favor? Aye.
Hold on, let me
Motion to
get time.
adjourn.
7:46.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. Second. All right. All in favor, say aye. Aye. That's it. Adios.